Hey, friends. Welcome to the latest edition of ARC News. I'm Nate Williams, the director of the Apologetics Resource Center, and I'm here mainly to talk about Charlie Kirk and the assassination of Charlie. And one thing I've been disappointed with is the reaction of those in Big Eva, evangelicalism. Jokingly, or not so jokingly, it's sometimes called the evangelical industrial complex. And all it is, it's a group of people, major publishers, major websites, and ministries that really have the largest platform within evangelicalism collectively. And they kind of serve as gatekeepers for good or ill. That if you're welcomed onto their shows, their podcasts, if you speak at their conferences, you're in the in group and you've made it in this world. And sometimes that can be a good thing because if you don't platform bad actors, if you don't platform people with terrible theology or bad cultural opinions, like objectively bad, that's a good thing. Not as many people are aware of bad teaching and just maybe terrible, whatever, sources of information. But then also there's a dark side, which is if Big Eva blacklists you, if you aren't one of them, and let's say you're a good teacher, a good pastor, a good theologian, you have a lot to say, a lot to share. Well, it's harder to build your own platform, to have your own audience, to go and share what you need to share ultimately for the glory of God. That's why we do what we do. And so I've watched the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, and I was just disappointed by kind of the mushy middle, weak responses by those in this arena. So you might think of things like the Gospel Coalition or Christianity Today. You might think of things like people like Russell Moore, David French, Gavin Ortland, and some of their stuff I like and I agree with. Some of it I don't, but that might be considered Big Eva. And they have a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence. And for example, related to the Gospel Coalition, there's stuff I've really enjoyed that they've written and books that they sell, writers and speakers. I'll watch videos and I'll listen to podcast episodes. And at times, people in this sphere has been a blessing to me. So I'm not coming in with an axe to grind to just, hey, if I trash you or if I trash these people, I get to build my own platform. That's not the goal. This is iron sharpens iron and an encouragement for us to be a little stronger. And then once I talk through this, I'll move to the rise of political violence and the progressive left and my argument for that. But here's some statements. This was a disappointing tweet from Christianity Today about Charlie Kirk. With a confrontational style honed for college campuses and social media, Charlie Kirk sought to renew America. The conservative, note this wording here. The conservative political activist and founder of Turning Point USA died on Wednesday at age 31. And so, as I walk through these stories and these statistics, I'll put them up on the screen if you're watching the YouTube or Rumble video. But what I want to tell Christianity Today and Russell Moore, no, he didn't just die. He was murdered. He was assassinated. Why would you use that mushy phrase? He died on Wednesday. No, he was killed. He was murdered. Why don't you say that? And then Mike Cosper, some of his stuff I've liked. Don't often or always agree with him politically, but I appreciate him as a brother in Christ. But I see something he tweeted. The absolutely disgusting behavior of people, right and left, after the murder of Charlie Kirk is probably the thing that will get me to sign off X forever. So at least he used the word murder. But notice the language, right and left. It's like, no, Mike. The right, I'm on Twitter as well. I've seen some ugly posts from Republicans and conservatives. That's true. But overwhelmingly, the ugliness has come from rank and file progressive leftists, those celebrating the assassination of Charlie Kirk, those saying to Trump, you're next. No, the right can get ugly. I know. I'm more on the conservative side myself. And I will spend typically more time criticizing the right than I will the left because of that fact that I'm more on the conservative side. But in this instance, no, it's not just the right and the left. It's more on the left, and it's okay to say so. Uh, we come from a world of Tim Keller third wayism, and it worked like this. Just like Aristotle and Aquinas talks about vices and virtues, where you have a virtue, something that's good, and then on either side there are vices, too much of this or not much, not enough of that. And then your goal was to be virtuous. That's in the middle. So you had a error on the right, error on the left. Tim Keller's third wayism is saying whenever there's an issue, you point out the flaw on the right, I guess, if you're looking at me, on the right, and then you're pointing out the flaw on the left. And Christ is in the middle. The gospel way is in the middle. And that's why whenever there's a tragedy, you have to be even-handed. You have to say, oh man, this political violence on both sides. You have to both sides everything. And in this issue, and overall in this topic of political violence, I disagree. The right can get violent too. I know, and I see the ugliness. But political violence is more encouraged in mainstream on the progressive political left. It's in the bloodstream of our college campuses. It is in the bloodstream of leftist political background, ideological thought, communism, Marxism, critical theory, critical race theory, critical queer theory, etc. It's more acceptable. The left birthed the French Revolution, which was godless, bloody, and didn't amount to anything lasting and worthwhile. The right, conservatism, led to the Revolutionary War, which was also very violent, but led to the creation of the greatest country this world has ever known. And we could walk through that at a later episode where America has lots of flaws, but has also done a lot of good for the world. And so, circling back to this both sidesism, no, it's okay to say that the progressive left, which is a large contingent in the Democrat Party, has a political violence issue. It's okay to say that. Yes, the political right, I'm aware of, let's say, white supremacist type groups on the right that will encourage political violence. That does exist on the right, but those accounts are small. The institutions they're trying to build are small. But the progressive left owns the universities. They're your professors. There are those who are teaching masses, countless amounts of students. And it's again mainstream in the Democrat Party, whereas in the right, what I'm trying to do and many others, we're trying to keep the radical fringes on the fringe. In the progressive left, they're not fringe anymore. This is normal. You can see it with the size of the posts that are made on social media, where the people celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, the murder of Charlie Kirk, you see the likes. The likes are in the hundreds of thousands, maybe even the millions at this point, and collectively in the many, many millions of people who like and share these posts, encouraging and celebrating political violence. So, no, Mike and Christianity Today and Russell Moore and others, it's not a left and right issue. While it is on both sides, it's okay. It's not going to hurt you to say that the progressive left has the worst problem with political violence. Let's see what else I can find. Um, Russell Moore. The shooting of Charlie Kirk is an atrocity that should shock and anger all of us. That's true. Everywhere on the political spectrum, this sort of violence is wicked, immoral, and un American. All true statements. But Where's it coming from? Who is it more of a problem for? In the rest of this video, I'm going to argue that it's more of a problem on the progressive left. And as I say this, you might be a Democrat, you might be someone who's center left, and you might be offended at this point. You're saying I'm going to go kill people, or you think all Democrats are murderers and assassins? No, no, no. I know there are classic Democrats of yesterday, pro-union. For example, you might support, larger, more inclusive welfare programs. And you're like, well, that's just what I'm for. I don't want to go and kill my political opponents. Are you meaning me? No. There's a difference in the political left between the progressive left, the far left, and those who are more center left, moderates. So it may not be you. So I do want to make that distinction. My problem is the progressive left is a very, very large part of the Democrat Party today. Whereas again, those on the right, we're trying to keep our crazies and our radicals over on the fringe and yes, gatekeep to a certain extent. Hey, you're evil advocating for these things. You stay over there. You're not going to be with us. The progressive left, it's in the universities, it's in the campuses, it's already there. The moderates, in my opinion, have lost control of the Democrat Party. And going to Gavin Ortland, he tweeted, again, something true, but something weak and mushy. This is what he says: praying for Charlie Kirk. Okay. This violence reveals a deep sickness in our culture. Come, Lord Jesus. Well, amen. I want Jesus to return. But notice the statement. Again, it's this mark of third wayism. This violence reveals a deep sickness in our culture. Huh. Our culture. You want to get any more specific, or you want to ride the fence and kind of be above it all and offer vague, broad spiritual platitudes? Again, Big Eva, that third way Kellerism that I'll use from time to time, and I think it has its place. I don't think it does the job here. And and so I'm going to make more of a specific argument of the progressive, the far left, how it's more of a problem there than in any other part of the spectrum. So just disappointed in Big Eva's response. And I could point out others. I'm sure you could find some other quotes as well. But a couple things. The progressive left has gotten more violent and justifying of political violence. So there's a story on MSN poll. This is from Dan McCaleb. 28% of Democrats say US better off if Trump were assassinated. I just did some quick math. Roughly, there are 44 million Democrats in the country. So give or take. So 28% of Democrats say US better off if Trump were assassinated. Okay, you take 44 million Democrats, and roughly a quarter of them say it would be better if Trump were assassinated. That's around 11 million people, a little more. That's not a small group of people. That's not fringe, right? Or if it's fringe, it's a very large part of the fringe. And then another poll from MSN. This is from Natalie Sandoval. Apologize if I'm mispronouncing the last name. Why are so many Democrats okay with killing Trump? One poll has the answer. And in this story, there was a poll from Rutgers released earlier this month, which revealed most Democrats, 55.2%, believe murdering President Donald Trump is justified. So this is another number that's much higher than 28%. And so 55.2%, that's over half. So again, using 44 million, understanding that the numbers vary, sure, I get it. So over half, what are we looking at? That's over 22 million people think that it would be justified to murder Donald Trump. And so we think back to the two assassination attempts on Trump earlier. Y'all, this is not a small group of people. And if I had to guess, they'd be more on the younger side. So For those on the center left, the moderate Democrats, the Democrats that held the traditional stances of yesterday, assuming a lot of these people are on the younger side, this is the future of the Democrat Party. And these are going to be your governors, your congressmen, your senators, your future presidential candidates. That's very alarming. Another part of this poll, I believe, let me try to find it. I think the poll also said that around 48% of people believe that it would be okay for Elon Musk to be assassinated, or that it would be justified if they were assassinated, if he was assassinated. So now it's not just Donald Trump, it's an activist like Elon Musk. It is a activists like Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was not a politician, but he was incredibly effective at traveling campuses all across the nation, stirring up the young people. And okay, if it's okay to kill Elon Musk, I'm sure those same people would say it's okay to kill Charlie Kirk. And that's dark and that's dangerous. Oh, this is another story that says that. So I'll put all this either on the screen. It'll be linked in the comment area, the description area of these episodes. But yes, 48.6% say that murdering Elon Musk is justified. This is a large amount of people. And from reports earlier today, they found the assassin of Charlie Kirk. His name is Tyler, and he was, it looks like, radicalized, maybe from a right-wing family, from what I've read. But if you look at some of the shell casings and some of the inscriptions there, it was very woke left, progressive left language about fascism and there was a quote from an anti-fascist song and things of that nature. So it looks like he was part of the woke left. And so he kills Charlie Kirk allegedly if they have the right person. I think that the Democrat Party, part of what it comes down to is okay, let me back up. Violence can and is done on both sides. This is my version of the both sides argument. Yes, red parts of the country have murder. Blue parts of the country have murder. Yes. But ultimately, political violence is a certain subset of violence. And when you have a party that's becoming increasingly godless, this is from the Pew Research Center, um, the Republican Party, this is 2023, 2024, I believe, about 74% identify as Christian. And then you have about 20% that identify as religiously unaffiliated. And then you have Democrats. About 50% of Democrats are Christian or identify as Christian. And then you have about 40%, so 4 in 10, identify as religiously unaffiliated. That's atheist, agnostic, or nothing in particular, the nones. This gets back to worldview. In the Republican Party, you have a large presence of Christians or those who identify as Christians. It doesn't mean the party is going to be perfect. Lord knows the Republican Party is not. We look at Trump and some of his words, actions, and his past behaviors. However, there is going to be a large contingent in the Republican Party that will be sort of functioning as, hey, y'all, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus say? There's a little bit of a check and balance in that if something evil and bad happens, there's going to be people there that say, hey, this is not right. We should not do this. There's going to be a large contingent of Protestants and positions of power. There's going to be a large contingent of Protestants who are activists, Catholics who are activists. You think about Franklin Graham, Charlie Kirk, and others, to where there will be some level, J.D. Vance, vice president, who talked about the order of loves. Can you imagine that? A vice president talking about the order of loves and loving Jesus, loving family, loving neighbors, loving community, so on and so forth down the line. There's going to be, as imperfect as it is, some presence in the Republican Party, at least at the moment, where you're going to have evangelical Protestants all over the administration. You're not going to have that, and you're not going to find that in the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party that fights against uh, prayers being offered in certain situations, the presence of the Ten Commandments in our schools that harken back to the Christian foundation of the West, the Democrat Party that fights to remove the words "In God We Trust," and it fights to remove just various aspects of religious, theistic, Christian, Judeo-Christian values and practices all over our government and in our culture. You think about nativity scenes and the removal of those from our public spaces. Well, guess what? That's going to come more from the Democrat Party. So, as imperfect as it is, the right allows some Christian influence in the Republican Party that's just not there in the Democrat Party. So, okay, if that's the case, and this is all verifiable, what worldview, and this gets at the core of my argument, what worldview replaces Judeo-Christian values? Because if that Christian influence, mainline Protestant influence, is almost gone in the political left, what replaces it? And what replaces it is some struggle for power. There's revolution, Marxism, communism, again, hearkening back to the French Revolution, hearkening back to the Frankfurt School. You got critical theory, critical race theory, um, uh, Michel Foucault, and others, where it's all about power, the haves and the have-nots, the oppressors and the oppressed. This is the paradigm, this is the worldview of the Democrat Party, the progressive left, that again is a large part today of the Democrat Party. And in this worldview, political violence is acceptable, or even stronger, it's encouraged and necessary to bring about change. You look at Soviet Union, the combination of atheism and communism in the 1900s, Mao in China, the revolution there, air quotes. Again, the French Revolution, I've mentioned it, I think that was the third time. It's godless, but it needs to happen to upset the existing order and some of the Christian structures and to replace it with atheism, secularism, agnosticism, the removal of these Christian influences, the Bible, the Ten Commandments. You have to have revolution. And if that involves killing people, it must be done. This is the worldview that is, I would say, part of a large group of people in the Democrat Party. So this political violence is justified. It is a good thing to affect change. You have to have it. Because then you get to implement your leaders, you get to implement your worldview, and then you have the fading and the destruction and the demolition of our Judeo Christian background and heritage. You have people saying, I'll try to find these quotes where I'm in this party, excuse me, I'm in these positions of power to implement these changes. And that leads to dark conclusions. Political violence does happen on the right. But guess what? We're going to have a little bit more of that check of, no, what you did was evil. No, what you did was bad. And you're going to have some of that accountability that's just not there in the political left. Now, you might point out and say, well, look at all of these Democrat politicians that had these condolences and these words of denouncing violence of Charlie Kirk. Yes, that's going to be there, but then look at their previous words and actions, encouraging this communism, this socialism, this Marxism that requires revolution. Yes, they're going to say one thing, but what worldview do they espouse? That matters more than just what they tweeted on X, what they posted on X. You have to look at the underlying worldview. So those are just some things I wanted to share. And I think I have some other things. Let me try to remember it. But that political violence is a part of our world. It's going to be encouraged. But I would argue it's more of a problem with the progressive left than it is with the far right, because the progressive left is so much bigger of a contingent than the far right is on the Republican Party. And it's okay to say that because the right, conservatism, republicanism, it has its own problems. There are problems in the church. If you've been around the podcast and the YouTube channel long enough, I will go on and on about problems in the church with accountability and people groups we're not good at reaching out to and evangelizing, social issues we need to address more. I feel like I'm very even-handed. But on this issue, political violence, I think it might be here to stay because it's in the bloodstream of the political left and it's growing on the political right. I'm willing to be wrong. I'm gonna put all the links and the facts and the figures for you to go read for yourself. But if you argue with me, hey, Charlie Kirk style, what you got? Let's talk. What are your facts? What are your figures? I'm not going to deny that political acts of violence have not been done from the right. I'm just arguing it's more of a problem on the left because of the underlying worldview. Uh, Talk with me, debate with me. I really don't mind. I'd love to know your thoughts. But, anyways, Charlie Kirk's assassination, heartbreaking. And I'd encourage all of us to grieve and mourn appropriately, then get after it. I made this short video, posted it in a few different places, but don't just wallow after this. Get after it. Be an activist. Go join and serve in your church, in your community, run for office. We need teachers and professors and actors and musicians. Go and be that salt and that light for Christ wherever you are. Go to the campuses. Go join campus ministry. Go be a missionary. Go start that Bible study in your neighborhood. What are you waiting for? If you're mad about Charlie Kirk's assassination, do something about it, not by hurting someone else with political violence, but be an activist. Go tell somebody about Jesus. Anyways, friends, that's all I have for now. I think what's going to happen is once I finish this video, I'm going to remember 5 things I wanted to say that I forgot, but that's typically how it goes. Nate here, and I was exactly right. I'm editing this afterwards, and I thought of something I forgot to say during the video itself. Another factor I would add is this the language of the progressive left and the general Democratic Party. The language has been very dark, evil, and wicked, calling a whole party Nazis or Nazi sympathizers, calling a whole party fascists and dictators and all this stuff. Part of it, yes, it is political rhetoric on both sides. Remember the whole both sides conversation? Yes, sure. But the whole punch a Nazi and the fall of democracy, right? If Trump's elected, democracy will fall and fail, and this is a fight for whatever. I think a lot of Democrats will recognize, okay, that language is overblown, it's used for effect, and it's exaggeration. But for enough people who believe it, the radicals and the crazies and the radical crazies and the crazy radicals, a lot of them are going to be like, oh my goodness, we need to do something. If this is the end of our world as we know it, if this is going to lead to the Handmaid's Tale and, the banning of interracial marriage and the slavery of black people and all the rest of that type of rhetoric, we need to do something. And if that means killing somebody, it's justified. Both sides have a rhetoric problem. But again, the whole Nazis calling people Hitler, the silencing of speech, speech is violence. Well, if speech is violence, Charlie Kirk spoke a lot. Charlie Kirk is violent. He must be stopped. Remember the whole speech is violence thing, censorship and all the rest of it? That, again, it's on both sides. It's more of a problem on the progressive left. The language of Nazis and violence and all that stuff is more of a problem on the progressive left. So that was something else I needed to mention because if you amp up your rhetoric constantly, eventually somebody's going to do something about it. We've seen it with Trump. We've seen it, I think, with Kavanaugh as well, a Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh, Charlie Kirk, and others. So yes, sorry, real quick edits. Until next time, this is Nate Williams, director of ARC, the latest edition of ARC News. Go, be safe, be blessed. I'll talk with you later.